but the storm will continue to move east into really along the county line of southern Manatee County. So if you're in this area, Siesta Key, even right just south of Sarasota, including portions of eastern Sarasota out towards Honorary Ave and Tatum, make sure you're getting into your safe place. Now, I have been tracking this for the last several minutes, and the rotation does begin to weaken a little bit as it moves ashore. I'm going to show you a little bit of that rotation right now. Just zooming down into, you can see that the difference in the color there, though. So if you look at the green is the wind moving toward the radar site, so that would be in that direction right there. And then those reddish hues are a little bit of the rotation and that wind speed moving away from the radar site. So I'll track this back about 30 minutes. You can see as the system was starting to move closer and closer to the coast, we saw that rotation right there. And then as it continued to move closer to there on Siesta Key, there on Beach Road, right just south of Siesta Key, that's where we were seeing some of that rotation. And then eventually it moved inland. Now, look, the National Weather Service saying this is just radar indicated at this point. There's been no confirmation of a tornado actually on the ground. But at this point, we have to assume that there was a tornado or is a tornado as that cell continues to push to the east. It's moving to the east around 20 miles per hour. So we're likely going to see this moving east of this warned area within the next probably give it another, what time is it right now? It's 11:20, warning goes until 11:30. So within the next 5 to 10 minutes, the area of concern is probably going to move east of this warned area, and then we'll see how that rotation is holding together. We're waiting for that latest scan on the radar to give us a better indication. But anywhere in this area, Bee Ridge, get into your safe place. Make sure you're putting as many walls between the outside threat, that potential tornado, and yourself. So you want to get into an innermost room or someplace that's going to be able to offer some of that security and that safety from that potential tornado that we're tracking here. Let me get over and let me put a tracker on this system as it moves to the east there, again around 20 miles per hour. So it's moving fairly quickly, and we would expect that the rotation with this is going to weaken a little bit, which would open it up and lessen the threat for this potential tornado. But as we track the system to the east here, even though we're expecting it to move out of that warned area relatively soon, we're looking at it moving into the Health South Rehabilitation Center by around 11:22. It'll be moving into the Bee Ridge area by around 11:26. And then they're at the Doctors Hospital of Sarasota around 11:32. So we'll see if it makes it much farther to the east from that. But zooming in here, I'll put the loop back on. This is looping over the last hour. You can see the general motion of it moving into Fordville, at least some of that initial precipitation, and then that rotation that we're finding with some of the heavier rainfall and some of that lightning is farther back to the west. So if you are just joining us here, we are jumping into The Price is Right to tell you about a potential tornado threat. A tornado warning in effect for Sarasota County is in effect until 11:30. That little blip that you just saw there is the National Weather Service updating the polygon area for that tornado warned region to just trim off areas along Siesta Key there, and then they're keeping it in effect until 11:30. Let me just check over here real quick and make sure everything is all good. Yep, they're extending or continuing the tornado warning until 11:30 with this severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located just south or over Sarasota or near Sarasota, moving to the east at 20 miles per hour. This is the only severe threat that we have right now. We have that one tornado warning in addition to several other scattered showers and thunderstorms across the region. So if you're here in Tampa or in St. Pete, you're probably saying, well, you got a little bit of sunshine mixed with a couple occasional showers, but it's this cell right here over northwestern Sarasota County, just south of Manatee County, moving to the east at 20 miles per hour. So again, this tornado warning remains in effect until 11:30. You're getting a lot of heavy rain with this, not a ton of lightning. What we saw was just the rotation right before the system moved ashore. So we started to see that spin up. And when we see that spin up right there near the coast, we have to watch for that potential of maybe a waterspout moving ashore. And then once it does, that would be a technical tornado then moving to the east. And it's likely going to continue to move to the east, but that tornado threat, I think, should begin to subside. We don't have a ton of rotation in the atmosphere today, but you just get a little bit of that rotation off of the water. You don't have the friction over the water, so you can get some spin-ups pretty quickly. Let's switch over to our velocity mode here, and it really is indicating that what we're seeing is that that rotation is beginning to weaken. You see right there, let me put a little arrow there for you. So right there is where we're seeing, that was the rotation around 11:12, just right before the tornado warning was issued. That rotation was moving right overhead of the land there at Siesta Key and outwards there of Ocean Boulevard and Beach Drive. And then that rotation moved right over Siesta Key, Southgate area, the South Sarasota area, Ridgewood Heights, and then farther to the east. Just now, that rotation seems to be dissipating a little bit. So we'll wait until 11:30 when that warning will expire. And let's see here, just getting any updates, no updates yet from the National Weather Service. I'm curious if any of our folks down in Sarasota County have received any damage reports. But usually we don't get those damage reports until a little bit later. We have to wait for, obviously, the safety of the situation to be able to go out there and check things out. But that tornado warning still in effect there for northwestern Sarasota County. Now, this whole cell is moving to the east right over 75. So this is going to be south of Lakewood Ranch, just west of Tatum. You see that area there in that flashing polygon. That's your tornado warning. And that area of precipitation extending to the east, right towards, so here's 75. And then there's North Sarasota, Sarasota, Siesta Key. This is where that rotation moved ashore, moving just east of 41 right now, almost paralleling 72. But then it'll continue to the east. I think by the time that it reaches 75, even though you're getting a little bit of lightning right now, some heavy rainfall, hopefully that rotation will continue to weaken and we won't have that tornadic threat, but still the potential for some heavy rain and some gustier winds associated with this line and that cell moving to the east. So I think if you're anywhere west of I-75 right now, get in your safe place. Stay there for the next 15 or 20 minutes. This isn't a huge, widespread threat this morning, but still enough to where we get a little bit of that rotation, and you get that, and it could draw down some of those stronger winds. And anytime you get winds moving in different directions in a relatively short area and small area, you're going to get that potential. But switching back over to our velocity mode, which shows us what direction those wind speeds are moving and how fast they're moving, you can see that, or at least we can show you that it looks like that rotation is dying down a little bit. This is the area right here that we're really focusing on, and it's going to be right in this area right here. There's still a little bit of rotation. That's a little bit of a concern. This is just north of Bee Ridge Road, there near McIntosh Road, and I'll zoom in even closer so you can see. And you know, we get these radar scans, and the radar scans, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes or so for the radar to spin all the way around. So I would say anyone near 75, right along Honoree, and then down into Bee Ridge Road, Porter Road, along I-75. Make sure you're in your safe place. Just hang tight here for the next 15 minutes or so. We'll let this warning go through its duration there through 11:30, and then we'll keep the eyes on that little area of rotation right there. So let me track this out here. Again, this system moving to the east at around 20 miles per hour. So there it was, right around 11:25. It's moving to the east at 20 miles per hour, and we're likely going to see it moving into the Lake Sarasota area around 11:35. Doctors Hospital of Sarasota around 11:32, so in about 4 or 5 minutes, and then moving toward Tatum Ridge Elementary. Now, Tatum Ridge, you are not technically in the warning area right now. I'll switch back over to our map here to show you where that warning polygon is. That warning polygon goes just up to I-75. So this is the area right now that has a little bit of that rotation right around Bee Ridge Road. Bee Ridge just north of Bee Ridge, right? And then it's moving to the east. So I think once it moves out of that polygon, which it's going to do within the next couple of minutes, almost perfectly timed with the duration and expiration time of our warning, which is 11:30. So we'll see Lake Sarasota, we'll see Tatum in this region if we need to get you off into your safe place, but just be at the ready, because we'll know here within the next couple of minutes if this rotation is going to continue to weaken. We'll get a couple more radar scans, and then we'll be able to tell whether or not we have that continued threat. But I think anytime that you see some lightning, certainly we're seeing some lightning just south of Lorain Road right now. They're just east of Lake Sarasota. You get lightning with some of this heavy rainfall and just a little bit of spin, and that could be enough to produce this tornado. But this is the concern right now. Gulf Gate Estates, even though you are still technically within the warned area, you guys should be okay. You might be getting a little bit of rain being blown off of that main cell to the north, but Gulf Gate Estates, you guys are going to be okay right now. So just watch that storm continue to pass to the east, and we'll see how this updates here. But again, if you're just joining us now and you're hoping to catch the last half of The Price is right before 10 Tampa Bay midday, we've got a tornado warning to tell you about, especially those of you in Sarasota County. The rest of the area still has some showers, and we just got down this new tornado warning. So even though the rotation seems to be weakening a little bit, still enough of a concern that we have a new tornado warning now issued to go across I-75 into the Tatum area and further east into the rest of Sarasota County. I'm going to ask our friends in the control room or anyone in the newsroom if there's any phone calls being put into Sarasota County, perhaps to see if we're getting any reports of any damage down towards Siesta Key. Awesome, just getting some reports now that there's no reports of any damage out of Siesta Key or northern Sarasota at this point. But this new tornado warning just issued from the National Weather Service goes until 12 o'clock, so right there at 12 noon, and it continues to move to the east now at around 25 miles per hour. Still no indication of it actually reaching the ground, so we're just getting some rotation there on the radar, which is enough to suggest the possibility of a tornado potentially coming down. So let me put this into a loop here. This is looping over the last hour now with the storm moving to the east. Now it looks like, if I'm going to slow this down a little bit for you, and we can look at this all together here, you can see how initially there was quite a bit more precipitation associated with this cell, and it's sort of consolidating a little bit, and that might be an indication of it's strengthening up a little bit more just as it moves across I-75. So I-75, hopefully the people were paying attention, they got the alert for this tornado warning and they were staying away from that region. But no doubt if there was any sort of rotation, people along I-75 may have seen it as it moved just north of Lake Sarasota in the Tatum area. Tatum area, you guys need to get into your safe place right now. You can see a little bit of a notch coming in on the radar. That would be some inflow in that general circulation that would be the tornado. And if I were to guess, I would suspect that if there's a tornado, it would be right in this area right here. You've got a little more precipitation on the northern side, and then you could potentially have that tornado just south of that. But that rotation is giving us that notch right there, and then switching over to the velocity mode, you can still see that there is that rotation on the radar. It looked like it had gone away for a second, but maybe that was just a little bit of debris showing up. We couldn't really see very well with where that rotation was, but there's still a good bit of rotation right there with that green indicating the winds that are moving toward the radar site, which is up in Ruskin. And then there's the other side of that rotation with the red right there. So this tornado warning will remain in effect until 12 o'clock. And there's our warned area. It goes right up to southern Manatee County. In fact, it does include a very little bit of Manatee County. So folks in Manatee County, if you just got the alert of this tornado warning in effect for Manatee County, it really does include just a very small sliver of it, but it does include the portions of Manatee County just west of Verna, right along 213th Street East. That rain that you're seeing in the area right now is not the threat for the tornado. The actual cell producing the tornado threat is still in Sarasota County. Same deal with kind of the panhandle, if you will, of Manatee County there as it wraps around eastern Sarasota County there near Old Myakka. That's not quite the threat yet, but it's a good time to get to your safe place right now, because that rotation within that trailing cell on the western side of all that precipitation is where we're finding that rotation, and we're finding that potential for for a tornado. Let me zoom out and just show the rest of the area. If you're watching around the rest of the Bay Area, you can kind of see where the system is currently tracking. Yeah, we're looking at quite a bit of heavier precipitation. We'll have to watch this area in Hardy County right now. Scattered showers around the northern part of Manatee into Hillsborough County. A couple of showers also coming ashore in the Indian Rocks Beach region of Pinellas County there, just north of places like Johns Pass. A few showers approaching Anna Maria Island and Fort DeSoto. These are all not a concern right now. Really, it looks like the only rotation that we have, with really the only lightning that I'm finding also, is within this cell right here over northwestern Sarasota County, moving to the east and then pushing eventually what will be into Manatee County. So this warning will go until noon. That gives us another, 25 minutes to track this thing. And of course, if the threat goes away, we'll be able to cancel the warning ahead of time. But for now, it looks like this warning is going to go all the way through noon and is in effect for mostly Sarasota County, but it does include a little bit of Manatee County as well. It's warm, it's humid out there. There's just a little bit of rotation. So if you get that lift in the atmosphere, just to tap into a little bit of that spin or that shear, then that could produce this tornado. It's radar confirmed at this point. We haven't gotten any confirmation of any damage or any reports of any damage at this point. But if we do, then we'll definitely pass along to you to let you know the areas to avoid. But the areas that need to be seeking shelter currently are in the northern part of Sarasota County. Really, it's starting to move east of the more populated area of Sarasota County, but it is still in the Tatum area, Lake Sarasota, just to the north of you. Gosh, really close there, right along Bee Ridge Road as it continues east from I-75 Palmer Boulevard. Palmer Boulevard area, the worst of the cell is right over you right now. So hopefully you guys are in your safe place as the cell moves to the east. It's moving toward Fruitville Road. So the cell itself is moving to the east at around 25 miles per hour. And I just do some live tracking with it right now. It's moving to the northeast or east at 25 miles per hour. So here it is, tracking out there with our storm tracker. And we're looking at it. Let's see, let's do this again here. Yeah, so it's moving east at 25 miles per hour. I'll clear this out. We'll do this again. 25 miles per hour, move to the east. There we go. There's a couple of points to keep an eye on right there. That's right there at Myakka Church at around 12:01. And then into Old Myakka also around 12:01, depending on exactly where that cell tracks. So we're waiting on the next scan from the radar, and the system is held together, if not defined itself a little bit more within the last 15 to 20 minutes. And we'll stop it right there. We were just talking about little notches in the radar. Those little notches give us an indication of how strong that rotation is, but it still looks like we're seeing that rotation generally in that Lorraine Road area, which is east of Lake Sarasota, just southeast of Tatum. And flipping over to the velocity, you can still see that area of a little bit of that rotation. Gosh, it's not much. It's not a dead ringer. So there's the potential. We're not finding anything that's really truthfully telling us that we have that threat for a tornado actually on the ground, but the potential is there to have that rotation to actually reach its way down to the ground. Remember, the radar, what it's doing is it's sending its radar scan off into the distance, and as the radar gets farther and farther away from the actual radar site, that beam is higher up in the atmosphere. So as we get down into Sarasota County, we're talking about that beam maybe being about 500, 700 feet up above the ground. So we can have that rotation above the ground, but that doesn't guarantee that rotation has resulted in actually a tornado spinning and going down and touching the ground. But this is the area where that would be possible, which is right along Palmer Boulevard, just east of Tatum. They're right over Bee Ridge Road, and then it will continue to move to the east into northeastern Sarasota County. Let me switch back over to the radar here so you guys can see what that looks like a little bit better now. So we're looking at that tornado warning polygon, that red area with the tornado warning in effect until 12 o'clock, and we're looping here just over the last hour. And it's that trailing edge of the precipitation that is starting to give us some of that indication of that little notching effect, where that rotation is kind of bending the rain, if you would, to give us that potential for the tornado, but no reports at this point. I think that's right, Josh. No reports yet of any damage?
Hey, Grant. Yeah, Josh Sidorowitz here stepping in as we prepare for our midday newscast. We are following to see if there's reports. We're also looking at some of our traffic cameras, too, to see if we can get some eyes on the ground there as well. So can you explain, so they've extended this now till noon. Does that mean that it's becoming more severe just because it's moving so quickly across the
Well, it's moving east. Okay. So as it moves to the east, the initial warning was until 11:30. We reached that 11:30 point, and that potential for a tornado is still there, even though it looked like initially once it hit the coast there near Siesta Key, it looked like that rotation may have been falling apart a little bit. It kind of maintained itself now.
Which is what we tend to see that, right? They're really quick. They kind of spin up on the coast, and then they very quickly die down. So this has still been continuing now, this threat.
And what's interesting with this, Josh, usually when you get an area of rotation within an area of rain, right?
Yeah.
You might see a flare-up of lightning, and you can see there's not a lot of lightning associated with that. And that's usually an indicator that the rotation's starting to pick up. Sometimes you'll see more lightning before you see the rotation. But in this case, there's really not a lot of lightning.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because my assumption would be more lightning means maybe the more potential for severity, but it's the opposite, you said.
Well,
so
no.
Lightning means it's tightening up?
Well, no. What I'm saying is typically you see more lightning flare up before the rotation begins to occur. So that lightning is sort of a precursor to that rotation. But with this actual cell, there's not a lot of lightning at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying.
But still, I mean, it's a very small area of rotation that could be producing that tornado.
Well, and I'm sure if you're tuning in right now or you're watching The Price is Right, you're in Tampa or St. Pete, you're wondering, hey, it looks not too bad out here. But
right.
this is a very isolated cell that we're looking at here in Sarasota. And when we come on the air for a tornado warning, look, it is our responsibility when you've got a potential severe threat like this that we've got to come on for our entire viewing area to alert the people who could be potentially in harm's way with a situation like this. As Grant has been saying, they've extended now this warning. If we can. Okay, so here's a live look. This is from our Van Wezel camp. So this is on the ground in Sarasota?
Yeah, this is on the ground right there by the John Ringling Causeway. Looking at that off in the distance. Now, this is not looking toward that cell, but that just shows you what skies and conditions are like down there. Meanwhile, looking at the Wyndham Grand there at Clearwater Beach, I mean, it's partly cloudy. It's nice. Now, there are a few scattered showers out there, but overall, it is really the largest threat right now is down into the Sarasota County, eastern Sarasota County, right there where that tornado warning is.
Grant, I do believe we've got a camera in the Siesta Key area, which I know it looks like it's moved through there, but this is what it looks like further south of Sarasota, Siesta Key. So you can see it moved through quick.
It moved through. People are, I mean, if they left the beaches, they're back on the beach right now. So we're panning to the south here, and I mean, unaffected it seems like, right? At least from this view, which is good news. The rain clears out and the sunshine will come back out. But if you're in that warned area now, you need to be in that safe spot because we've had good warning on it here.
Absolutely. And you were talking about, too, again, and I think this is always a good point to make. This is a radar indicated. So what does that mean, again, when it's radar indicated?
Well, it just means that we haven't actually had a confirmed report of a tornado. Now, I mean, it's a double-edged sword when you say it's radar indicated, because then it maybe gives a false sense of security. Well, then that means there's not a tornado, right? Well, no, that just means that a tornado has not been reported. It means that one hasn't been seen or at least reported, because there could be a tornado on the ground, and when you see those last frames of that loop, there's still that little hook right there and that little notch in the radar. So there's still the rotation there. There's still that threat. There's still the potential for a tornado to come down and touch down at any second. Just because the National Weather Service or 10 Tampa Bay haven't received a report of there being a tornado, that doesn't mean that there's not one on the ground. So anytime that we see enough of a radar indication or a radar indicated tornado, we really do have to assume and act like there is a tornado on the ground, which is what could be happening right now. We just aren't there to actually see it. But that's a good little notch right there that would suggest the potential for that tornado.
And again, that notch means that it's tightening up there. So you've got
Yeah, let me jump over here, Josh. I mean, you're absolutely right. That little notch, when you think about it, I mean, you have that counterclockwise circulation for most of the tornadoes, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. When you're looking at that inflow into a cell that has the rotation, that would be that wind producing that notch, and then you have that also continuation of that rotation or that shear producing that little comma shape on the backside. Now this view, we call this the reflectivity. So this is the rainfall, but we can actually use a Doppler radar to not just measure what direction those wind speeds are, but what speed they're flying at as well. And that green is the wind direction, or those little raindrops being blown by the wind toward the radar site. And we know the red pixelated areas are raindrops being blown away from the radar site. So that's exactly where that rotation is, and that matches up with where we're seeing that notch on the radar, that's the indication, that the radar indication of the potential for a tornado.
Okay, so again, as Grant has been saying, you're looking at, if you are in sort of this area you're seeing right now, highlighted in the reds and the oranges and yellows, south of Fruitville Road here, this is where you're going to want to get to your safe space, put as many walls between you and the outside, because there is the potential, again, for a tornado here as we have this warning from the National Weather Service. We do have a live look out at Bee Ridge Road, which at this point I think, so this is probably on the back end from where the storm has already moved through.
Yeah, so this is right along I-75 at Bee Ridge Road. The cell has moved to the east of that area now. It's moving right along Bee Ridge Road, but east of 75, just south of Fruitville Road. And there's not a lot of roads. There's not a lot of population in this area. If you look at Harvest Drive, that's right where the cell is moving east of right now, in that Founders Club Drive. So if you're east of that, then we're likely to see that rainfall be the precursor to that trailing rotation that would be producing that tornado right now.
With this warning, what are some of the potential threats that the National Weather Service is?
So, I mean, we might have some hail within this. I mean, the hail of not quite up to an inch, so it looks like it's about maybe 3/4 of an inch size hail, and I can show you that here. We're just looking at some hail tracks going back with this cell. There's our radar not really indicating a ton of hail with it, but there's the potential that we could see some hail. Anytime you get a stronger thunderstorm, it could take some of those raindrops and throw them up into the atmosphere to produce some of those little hailstones. But the main concern with this is the tornado. Obviously the rainfall, and you're going to get some gustier winds, but the immediate threat with this is that tornadic threat, where that storm could be producing some rotation. Some people on the ground, you could see the clouds moving and spinning around along with that heavier rainfall. But what's interesting with this is actually to the south. So in this area right here where the arrow is pointing, you've got clearer conditions. So there's not rain down there. So if you're down south of where this cell is moving, you might be able to see the bottom of the clouds in that cloud base and potentially look at that funnel or rotation in those clouds, eventually what may be a tornado. But we just got this latest scan in here, and you don't need a trained eye to see that going back, we saw the little notch, we saw the notch there, and then right there, that was the best radar signature that would suggest that there was at least enough rotation to produce a tornado. No guarantee that it actually did. But then into this next radar, it kind of seems to be falling apart.
Okay, so that shows you that it is weakening.
Well, potentially. That's just where the rain is. If we flip back over to our velocity mode, kind of up into the middle of where that rain is, there's still that little bit of rotation right there. It's not a home run, but there's still enough of that contrast, right, between the green right here, that green, which is winds moving to the north, and that red where the winds are moving to the south. So you kind of put those close together, and you have southerly and northerly winds, and that would be the spin to make that tornado.
And Grant, just want to let you know, we in the newsroom here, we are still tracking to see if there are any damage reports.
Right.
At least at this point, we're not seeing any of those, so that is a good sign for now at least, but we're keeping an eye out for that as well as we're tracking this. Again, if you're just joining us here, you were hoping for the Price is Right. This is a live tornado warning right now. It is our obligation as your television station here in Tampa Bay to come on the air when we do have a threat potentially for viewers in our area. And this is where we're seeing that threat right now as Grant widens out the map here. Southern Sarasota County moving now east of I-75. And, you know, if you're maybe in our northern viewing area or even, you know, further west in Sarasota, you're not seeing anything right now. But this is a strong potential threat here highlighted in that red box.
And it's moving into a relatively unpopulated part
Yes.
of our area. So a lot of people are saying, well, you know, it's not impacting me.
Sure.
What's, you know, why are you jumping in the programming? And our Price is Right. And I have to say, you know, and I'll say this every single time, if we protect one life, then that's one life well served, and that's exactly what we have to do here, because as it moves east, there's going to be a potential for it to move into Manatee County as well. And you see the warning technically does include Manatee County, but you can see how that northerly corner of that polygon does include Manatee County. But if that rotation maintains itself, then it could move into a good bulk of southeastern Manatee County, and then farther off into the east into DeSoto and Sarasota. Typically, these signatures, these radar threats, don't last that long. Typically, what we see here in Florida is you get a storm moving ashore, you get a quick little spin up along the coast, you might get a little water spout, and then they might move ashore maybe 5 miles or something like that, and then that rotation begins to weaken. And it initially looked like it was doing that, but then it sort of got another little surge, and this is where we're seeing it extend now across northern Sarasota County. And part of that precipitation or rainfall is starting to move into Manatee County as well. But at least immediately around the rest of the immediate Bay Area, we do have a few spotty showers. There's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. I mean, it's humid. Yes. This morning, and you can just feel it. Almost feels like summertime, doesn't it?
It's soupy out
I mean,
there,
it's March, but so these showers will pack a punch. I mean, Polk County, some pockets of some heavier rainfall. We have more showers starting to move into the northern part of Manatee County, more showers and storms back to the south approaching Sarasota County. So we'll have to watch some of those cells as well for that potential for some rotation that may result in a tornado. But this is all out ahead of a cold front that's going to sweep through and bring us much cooler air for at least through the middle of the week.
But definitely unusual, Grant, is we're going on more than a half hour here, to your point, that these warnings are typically much quicker when something like this spins up, as it started on the coast towards Siesta Key.
Right. Well, the initial warning was only for like 15 minutes.
Sure.
So, and then this one, once it went through 11:30, they just issued it for a 30-minute warning. And that initial warning is usually what you see, like a 15, maybe 20-minute warning. But now they said, okay, rotation's holding together. We have to watch this thing as it continues to move inland. And it does look like that rotation is beginning to die down. I'll track it back here. Here's the rotation that we're looking at right here. There's the green, there's the red, and that little couplet, or that close distance between the red and the greens. And I'll move it forward here. So this is going to around 11:42. There you see the green, the red. That's the couplet that we were tracking for that potential for a tornado. And then we'll go to the next radar scan. So this is at 11:47. There's our couplet right there. That's that rotation that the radar is indicating where we may see a tornado. And then we'll go to our latest scan here, that is the latest scan. So the couplet is still there, even though the rain or that reflectivity isn't as impressive as it was. You can still almost see that little bit of a notch right there of where we might have a little bit of rotation. I think this next radar scan will be a good indicator. If it holds together, then we're going to have to watch it. If it continues to weaken, then that's a good trend.
How frequent do those scans come in?
They'll come in every 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
So we kind of have to wait and watch, because the radar is doing a whole 360-degree scan of the entire area, and we have to wait for it to swing back around and give us this latest scan, which you kind of saw
What just
live
happened there? Okay.
There, exactly, yeah. So that latest scan there, we'll get the reflectivity scan, which is what this is first, and then the the radar and the computers will analyze all the data and give us that velocity scan next. But there is still a little bit of a notch right there.
Okay, so you're still seeing a little concern.
Still seeing a little bit. I mean, it's nothing independently I think that we would be concerned with, but the fact that we've been tracking this area of rotation for the last, going on 35 minutes now. Yeah, there is still that threat. Here comes the next scan, and that makes it hard to see. It's kind of right there, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if this trend continues. So when you see 2 or 3 scans of a trend, right, whether it's weakening or strengthening, that's obviously a good sign.
Potential that would the National Weather Service cancel that warning before noon, or just let it go?
Well, at this point, we've got 6 minutes left. They may just let it ride out all the way until noon, which is pretty customary. They issued it until noon to cover. They'll wait for a couple more radar scans to come in, and then they'll be able to let it expire.
And we are obligated to, as long as a warning is live for a tornado warning, especially, that we need to see it through, again, because the National Weather Service is saying that there is still a very strong potential threat there. So that is why we are remaining on the air. We apologize if you're trying to catch the prices right here, but we have a responsibility to do this and see it through until the National Weather Service says it is expired at noon here, which is coming up in just about 5 minutes. Again, this tornado warning, Sarasota, parts of Manatee, going out about 35 minutes now. We've been tracking.
Right, so here's Manatee County. This is the line for Manatee County. And so this is approaching Old Myakka. Here's Fruitville Road. Here's Myakka Road right there. Verna Road. So anywhere in this area, guys, if you're in this part of northeastern Sarasota County, get into your safe place. There's still a little bit of rotation observed here on the radar, enough to give us the concern that there could be a tornado on the ground. So we get to your safe place here. This is on the far eastern fringe of our tornado warning, and there is a little bit of that notch in the radar that would suggest the possibility of there being enough rotation to take a funnel cloud, take that rotation in the atmosphere, and drop the funnel cloud all the way down to the ground. So Old Myakka, Fruitville Road there just north of Old Myakka. Get into your safe place with this storm. You may be hearing an occasional rumble of thunder, or you maybe hear that heavy rainfall. That's where that threat for a tornado is. But there's not a lot of lightning with it, so don't wait to hear lightning like you would typically with maybe a summertime thunderstorm or something like that, because there just has not been a lot of lightning with this particular cell as it moves to the east. Yeah, Josh.
So, Grant, we were looking at, I could see we had more showers coming up off the coast. We've obviously got a lot of people in town this week for spring break, maybe people out of towners here. Is there a potential that we could see some of these other bands off the water turn severe potentially?
Well, there could be. There wasn't a huge potential to begin with today. So we have to watch all of them really closely. So I don't want to say just because we had this one warning that every single little cell of rain that's going to come off the coast is going to be a concern. But just looking back over some of those cells, I'm not seeing a lot of rotation. There's a little bit of some kind of wedged it within some of that rainfall. There's a little bit of rotation there. There's a little bit there. So there's little areas of rotation with some of that rainfall out there and some of those thunderstorms. But typically with these thunderstorms, once they hit the coast, or even as they get closer to the coast, that they could begin to weaken. So they're all worth monitoring and watching. And it looks like, I'll flip back over to the radar here. The warning remains in effect. Looking at getting an update. No updates yet from the National Weather Service. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll say, all right, here's the plan. We're gonna allow this to expire, or we're looking at the need to extend it. And they're doing exactly what we're doing here live on TV, and that's really just watching each one of these radar scans to see how each of the scans show the atmosphere changing or potentially not changing. But that's the little area right there that we're watching. And it really is a small area of concern. That's where it was before. And then going back in time, one more scan, there it was right there. So you see how it's generally moving to the east-northeast in that direction. That's why we're pointing out Old Myakka at this point. And then potentially even places like Myakka City in Manatee County for where this cell is generally moving. Let me switch back over to the radar here, and I'll put another storm track on this because it is moving to the east or east-northeast. at around 25 miles per hour. So moving into Old Myakka right around 12:02, so in about 4 or 5 minutes or so. And then farther off into Myakka City a little bit later than that, around 12:05 or so.
All right, if you're just watching us here at 10 Tampa Bay, live with this tornado warning in Sarasota County, Josh Sidorowicz here off camera as we prepare for our midday newscast while Grant Gilmore has been tracking this warning. We are intending to follow this here, as Grant has been saying, until the National Weather Service has it scheduled to expire in about 2 minutes, and then we'll start our newscast as planned unless things change here. But for now, Grant, it sounds like that this is starting to dissipate as it moves further inland off the coast, and again, just waiting for that official expiration from the National Weather Service here at the top of the hour, now under a minute from now.
Yeah, and there's a lot more rainfall to be had today. There's a good scattering of showers. The cold front that is ultimately driving a lot of this rainfall is now just starting to move into the Big Bend area, just north of the Nature Coast and north of Crystal River. So I think the immediate threat would be this rotation along the southern end of all that precipitation. So looking at areas right now where that tornado warning is, obviously in eastern Sarasota County, moving into Manatee County, this band of showers and storms now just off the coast. We'll have to watch those. But I think all the rain to the north is just scattered showers. I think we'll likely see that move through with very little fanfare, and we won't have to cut into any more programming, fingers crossed. But this immediate area in the southern fringe of all that precipitation is the area to watch. And just looking at the latest here, it looks like that warning will be allowed to expire. We just hit the noon hour, so that warning should be expiring. We're not getting any new warnings, so we should be able to jump right into our plans for midday. Now, of course, we don't get those reports of any damage right off the top. We have to wait to get the phone calls into first responders if there's anything going on out there. So just because we haven't gotten any reports yet doesn't mean that there wasn't a tornado out there.
Correct, and we are monitoring that right now. We've got our assignment desk taking phone calls if there are any. We're tracking social media as well and other storm reports to bring you that if there is any indication of that. But as Grant said, we haven't had any, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any out there. All right, as we transition here into the top of the hour, you are watching 10 Tampa Bay this midday. I'm Josh Sidorowicz in for Courtney Robinson. We want to get to the news. We're right